Hello, and thank you for joining this course on Texas mental health courts, put on by the Texas Judicial Commission on Mental Health. I'm Christy Taylor, the Executive Director of the JCMH. Our commission was formed by the two highest courts in a joint effort to engage and empower court systems through collaboration, education, and leadership, thereby helping improve the lives of individuals with mental health needs, substance use disorders, or intellectual and developmental disabilities. Today, we are talking about how to create a mental health court. JCMH has created a 10-step guide that is available on our website and attached to this video. The first step in starting a mental health court is understanding the concept. What is a mental health court? A mental health court is a program used to connect people to appropriate treatment, community resources, and judicial monitoring that will address the underlying issues. You might see a mental health court in a family law setting, a criminal, or a civil court. These programs vary in their goals, their target participants, program conditions, and can address mental health challenges in criminal courts either pre or post-adjudication. The Texas Government Code sets out the essential characteristics of a mental health court. You are going to look for the integration of treatment into cases, the use of a non-adversarial approach, early identification and prompt placement of participants, access to services, ongoing judicial interaction with participants, diversion of the defendants away from the justice system, evaluation of program goals and effectiveness, continuing interdisciplinary education, and development of partnerships with public agencies and community organizations. Mental health courts should be just one part of a broader effort to improve our response to people with mental health needs. We encourage every community to look further upstream and to drive their interventions as early as possible to keep people from moving further into the justice system. For the people who are already in the justice system, mental health courts have been a wonderful intervention. They've provided the structure and services for life-changing experiences. Today, we are going to hear from 3 JCMH judges with mental health court programs. Let's learn about how these programs were started.
My name is Brent Carr. I'm the founding judicial officer of the Tarrant County Mental Health Diversion Program. The local mental health association invited certain members of the judiciary to a free luncheon. We went to their presentation. It was put on by a prosecutor, a defense attorney, the judge of the program, and the program manager. They were all from Indianapolis, Indiana. Actually, the prosecutor had started this program, so we invited him back down here for 2 days. We went through his program with a fine-tooth brush. We called in all of the community relevant resources, DA's office, defense attorneys, community resources, mental health service providers. We crafted a plan and we admitted our first participant in 2003, and we have now successfully graduated, if not 1,000 in this program. We've got to be getting pretty close.
My name's Judge Elizabeth Beyer-Leonard, and I am the presiding judge of the 238th District Court in Midland, Texas. Mental health court, it's not a different court, at least in Midland County. And for you smaller jurisdictions that don't have resources to hire another judge or hire an associate or a magistrate type judge, think of it as a docket. It's a docket that's run through a district or a county court at law court. And so the mental health docket, like any other docket, is called, for us, it's every other Thursday. And on that docket are participants, we don't call them defendants, but they're participants that come to court for their accountability. It's part of the structure of a mental health court. And I will visit with them every other week on Thursday afternoons. We started out with just a pilot program with 5 to see kind of how this would work. And then we, obviously grew up from there. But we needed to see what it would take to have them in services and also on probation, and what it would take to have a specially trained probation officer and how we would all work together. All of these are all post-adjudication. We have done some pre-adjudication, so instead of being on probation, they are with our pretrial bonding program.
Step 2 is to collect the data. We want to make sure that we have the data to support the creation of mental health courts in your community. Data can be used for advocating for funding, determining program improvements, and identifying what works for which participants and under what circumstances. Ongoing collection of this data can be used to sustain funding. And how do you analyze and improve the program? But one question we always get is, how do you start? We recommend that you start with data that already exists in your county and consider what data could be added in the future. Develop a plan that sets out what data will be collected, what is the source of the data, who is responsible for collecting the data, and where will it be stored. One way to help determine what data should be collected is found in Step 3, Map Community Resources. Conducting a community mapping will convene local stakeholders, determine services available in the community or surrounding communities, and identify gaps in those services. Mappings can range in depth of review and can be completed by the mental health court team or by a third party. The JCMH and the Texas Health and Human Services Commission are two organizations that offer free mappings of your community. We recommend that you include a review of existing court and probation programs in the mapping to determine if there are options that already service individuals at different risk and needs levels, and for you to see which of those are not being met.
These are also called problem-solving courts. So if you think of mental health court this way as, okay, we are going to meet these participants where they are. What resources do they need? What do they need from us to A, be stabilized on their medication, and B, perform well during probation, getting a job, paying, having housing, doing their community service. What is it that we can encourage them to do, or resources we can provide to them so they can be successful on probation and afterwards?
I'm Nelda Cassiati. I am a judicial staff counsel for the Tarrant County Criminal Courts and also serve as the mental health magistrate. If a county doesn't really have a ton of resources in their own community or their own county, see if there's any relationships that could be built with other resources that are close by or nearby. Really start talking to who would be the stakeholders involved in starting a program and getting their buy-in and figuring out what's available and how we can best use it in the most efficient way.
Step 4, selecting the mental health court team. Choosing the right team members is an essential part of creating a new court or docket. Our experts will now tell us more about how they set up their mental health court teams.
Under Texas law, it is the prosecution that has authority to move for dismissal in criminal cases. So they are absolutely a necessary partner. But the great thing is that as the law dictates, this is supposed to be a collaborative process. We also brought in a defense attorney representative. The probation director at the time, he was so enamored with the concept that he basically donated a full-time probation supervision officer. We also have our local mental health authority that provides resources pretty broad in nature.
You will have a program manager, somebody who's like Rain, who's overseeing the program. He's also doing the interviews of the potential participants in the program to determine what their needs are going to be and determine if they would be a good candidate for the program. You have an administrative person, that's Rachel, who is basically taking in the referrals. So she's talking to the attorneys and communicating with the courts to letting them know that the person's been referred to the program and we're in the process of screening them. And then you have the case manager, who is like Pam, who is basically dealing with the individuals on a weekly basis. They're in the program and coming into the program. So, just keeping them on task and making sure that things are progressing and that the person's progressing in the program and their needs are getting met. And then you have obviously the judge who's presiding over the docket and sort of overseeing the whole program, making the decisions that are necessary for the program, and then individually talking to the participants at dockets throughout the month. We have 2 dockets every month. And then also, obviously, dealing with any violations of the program or any issues that may arise.
A bare minimum is you need to have at least part-time from the local mental health authority, so they're following up, and at least a part-time probation officer at a minimum. And I like the idea of having a defense attorney here. He's not employed by us. He's on our indigent defense attorney list, and he comes over and he's paid by the hour.
Step 5 is to successfully train your mental health court team. We recommend that you seek training, mentoring, and technical assistance when creating a new program. Read written resources, schedule time to watch webinars online, and make sure to observe other established treatment courts. Judges should determine what initial training should be completed by the mental health court team, and then what ongoing training will be necessary. Also, consider what training should be developed or implemented for your local treatment professionals to ensure that you have a successful mental health court team. The JCMH offers training, technical assistance, peer connections, and our annual summit has training on specific topics and opportunities to connect you with other courts who are in your same place. Other sources of training include the Texas Association of Specialty Courts and the National Association of Drug Court Professionals. Both organizations have annual trainings that will offer valuable insight and networking. Step 6 is to identify eligible participants. Because mental health courts are specialized interventions, they can serve only a portion of the defendants with mental illness. So careful attention should be paid to determining their target audiences. Best practices developed from national research advise that courts should set their eligibility criteria to focus on defendants at the high risk of reoffending. Participants with a moderate to high risk of recidivism have the most potential to benefit from mental health courts. However, many community stakeholders have to agree to these eligibility requirements, including the district attorney. So many judges find themselves in a position where they will need to create programs that allow both misdemeanor and felony participants to meet their community standards.
The mental health court takes on several different duties or responsibilities depending upon the type of program. So in Texas, we have both what we call pre-adjudication mental health programs. So someone may have been arrested, had charges filed against them. They tend to be less serious in nature. If they complete the program, the goal is the case is dismissed. They're eligible to pursue an expunction. If you turn up the heat a little bit and you're dealing with some mentally ill offenders that have some more significant charges or some more significant matters about their case that must be dealt with, because at the end of the day, not everybody goes to prison, and we have to basically attempt rehabilitation with some of these people as well. So this would be a post-adjudication court where the individual participant would probably be on some form of probation with conditions to comply with mental health program rules. When you have a mental health program, this might sound like a little bit of an odd statement, but sometimes people are too sick to be in the program, and there's nothing that we can do within the limits of our program that will be of a help to these people. So we had to learn who were the appropriate people to take. I would say our program is probably about 2/3 misdemeanor, 1/3 felony.
Well, there are certain minimal requirements. Obviously, a person has to have a mental illness or an intellectual disability or developmental disability to be in the program. And then really the review process happens at the level with the district attorney's office, as well as with the staff that works with the mental health diversion program. So the program manager and the caseworker over the program also, review all of the records and interview the person and make a determination as to whether they would be a good fit or a good candidate for the program.
You have somebody on probation, they have a diagnosis of bipolar schizophrenia or major depressive order. Well, you want to make sure that they're in mental health treatment. So you can say, okay, let's go over to the mental health authority and let's get you screened. They'll give you a letter as to whether or not you have one of those diagnoses, and then if you do, they'll give you an appointment to see a doctor so you can get your medication. Those are the people that you need to identify. And then if they're also on probation, since ours is post-adjudication and also on probation. So who fits in both of those categories? We don't automatically disqualify anyone. So we kind of take the big picture approach, and then we make individual decisions.
Step 7 is plan the program. What do you want your program to look like? How will participants move through the program? And what is considered a success? When developing a plan, you might consider these things. Treatment plans. Are they highly individualized and adaptable to change during the program? Do they address the criminogenic needs with an array of services? How will you ensure adherence to the program? Will you use sanctions, incentives? What does successful program completion look like? What does unsuccessful completion look like? You might need to determine the agreed upon plea arrangement or any other alternative outcome if a participant fails to complete the program.
There's a process. The commissioners, if you're going to do a statutory program, the commissioners have to do a resolution, so once they pass it and a program is created, and now the law requires counties of a certain size to have a mental health program, we would turn to our local mental health authority primarily to say, okay, well, this is the diagnosis, what is the best way to deal with this? So we would work with them and we would work out a treatment plan for each individual based upon whatever their particular needs were.
We have 3 phases of the program. So there's phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Phase 1 is just really entry into the program, getting people sort of used to the program and what the requirements of the program are, getting them referrals for the different needs that they may have, like counseling or maybe a provider for medications, things like that. And just kind of getting them acclimated to the program. Phase 2 is really where a lot more of the work happens for the person. They really get into their counseling. Maybe they have substance use issues, so they really get into that treatment and so forth. And then phase 3 is sort of the home stretch. We're doing really well. We're really pretty stable in our treatment, and we're working towards other things like perhaps, a GED, a job, housing, things like that. And then, so that's kind of where we get to the point to where we're ready to start determining when they should be graduating from the program.
Step 8 is to document the work. When seeking funding, you will be in a much better position if you can show documented progress. Don't start from ground zero. Use documents that other mental health courts have created as a foundation for your program, and then just adjust and edit the documents to fit your program and your community. Establish written policies and procedures at the beginning of the program, and continuously examine them for potential revisions as the program evolves. Our advice is not to wait until the program becomes well established. Create documentation that clearly explains the parameters of the program and describes the related issues. You want to communicate that the mental health court program has this eligibility criteria, this referral intake process. You want to go talk to your local defense bar associations, public defenders' offices, prosecutors' offices, local judges, and other key stakeholders. We recommend that your documentation could include policy and procedures manual, a participant handbook, referral and screening procedures with a HIPAA release, eligibility criteria, a memorandum of understanding between all the team members, integrated case plan template, program goals, measurable objectives, program history and partners, and case and staffing status hearing procedures.
We have a very high long-term success rate on the measurable standard. Our rearrest rate is about 14% over about 3 years, which is the standard for measurement. And when you compare that against the criminal justice system, where they have about a 60%, if you've ever been arrested, you're likely to be arrested again in your lifetime. Well, that's an amazing success.
The program can take up to 2 years. At a minimum, most people are in it about 9 months. And from there, it really kind of depends on the person, you know, how they're progressing through the program, if they're meeting their treatment requirements, if they've had any setbacks or so forth, anything we needed to address, any new issues that have come up. A program like this makes a big impact on an individual as well as the community and a county. In that vein, it helps the counties and the community because it reduces costs of incarceration, especially repeated incarceration, as well as the use of the emergency rooms, which can be quite expensive as well.
The success rates of drug courts, meaning people who go through it and then stay out of it for either a year or 3 years post-graduation, is like 56%. So don't get discouraged when you have 40 people who are not graduating or they're reoffending, because that's kind of national average. So if you get to 60%, that's good. That would be something to say, hey, we have a win.
Step 9 is find funding. Finding funding is one of those questions that we get asked a lot at JCMH. There are grants from the governor's office, as well as national grants to help you start new programs. Many judges, though, have started a program with little or no funding. By starting small and gathering data, judges can seek funding from their local commissioner's court or community organizations when they can prove some success. Relevant funding sources may assist with training, technology, and court improvements. The Government Code also provides authority for county commissioners to establish a mental health court program that permits the program to charge the participants the cost of the treatment and services during the program if those participants are able to do so.
When you're able to show a positive track record, of course that has an impact on potential funding agencies, whether they be federal, state, or local. As far as dollars go, we did secure a grant within the first few months of our operation from the Bureau of Justice Assistance. You might have local foundations that we approach from time to time. So my advice is always be on the lookout. Know who in your community might have an interest in this type of thing that may have access to funding. Never hesitate to call other programs and ask them how they get their money. And frankly, a lot of if you can't get information any other way, a lot of this stuff is public record.
If you think about this as a docket and not about, okay, we're just going to do a new court, because courts sound expensive. If you do a docket, the way I went to my local mental health authority CEO, I go, can we do 5? Let's see if this helps. Let's do 5. And do you have a caseworker now that could do 5 and could come to meetings every other week for about an hour and a half? Can you give me that, and let's see if this works? And I'm talking about the small counties. This isn't going to help in a big county. So if you're a small county, just see if they have somebody. But if you want it to grow much more than that, then you're probably going to need to go to the commissioner's court and say, hey, what we did was we got a position filled through our local mental health authority. And not only does that person help mental health court, but that person might be someone who goes to the jail and does the 1622s. That might be somebody who does inpatient restoration of competency in the jails. That person might be somebody who does outpatient restoration of competency. So it's not just that one job. You can say, hey, this person can do a lot for us if we just get one person funded.
Step 10, register the court. Mental health court programs must be registered with the Office of Court Administration. Your program must meet the statutory requirements of Texas Government Code 125001 for you to register. The 10-step guide links you with the website and forms needed to register your court with the Office of Court Administration. The form is relatively simple, and the site also provides language that you might consider providing to your Commissioner's Court to do the required resolution, as Judge Carr touched on in Step 7, in planning the program.
You basically have to file a request. You have to get your commissioners to approve a resolution authorizing the program. Then you register that with the Office of Court Administration, and that's going to include, what your plan of action is going to be. You're going to have to file something that talks about how you're going to run your program. Commissioner's Court resolution, submitting your plan of operation to the Office of Court Administration, along with the type of program and how you intend to, what your goals are and how you intend to accomplish your goals. For the statutory programs, that's basically how you do it.
Finally, let's hear some success stories, including an account from someone who found a mental health court to be that intervention that helped her turn her life around.
My name is Amber McCutcheon, and I am a graduate of the Mental Health Diversion Program. I used to get into a lot of trouble. I was in and out of just petty crimes. When I would get into trouble and I would get arrested, I would get bailed out just as soon as I went in. But the very last time that I did not get bailed out. And so I got booked into, the county jail. And my attorney came and saw me and he said, "I'm not doing this anymore. You either get your stuff together or, you're gonna go to prison." My life was slowly just kind of going down this spiral. And of course I didn't see it at the time, but my attorney, who I didn't know worked really closely with this program, did. It was really exciting just to think about where I started. I mean, I started pretty much homeless in a jail cell, going through serious withdrawals, knowing that I needed a change, but kind of one foot in the door, one foot not, out of the door. They were just very supportive. I don't think that my life would be completely different if it wasn't for this program. Completely different. They literally saved my life.
There's so many success stories, people that never thought would make it through probation, people who are reunited with their children who were on just destructive paths, people who haven't worked that are now off of disability and now are working and supporting their families. There's all sorts of good, heartwarming stories to tell you about, and it's just people needed a chance. People needed someone to believe in them and not give up on them.
For the individuals, just even listening to them in the dockets, especially their improvements that they've made, the progress that they've made in spite of their struggles, you can see the impact right there in every single docket that we have. And I love really hearing about people's journeys when they come to graduation time and they tell about the journey they went through and where they're at and how they intend to go forward. That always moves me, and it always moves everyone who's involved. So it's just a great program to have.
I have no idea about how many people I have sent to prison or jail. The count, I wouldn't even know where to begin guessing. But I gotta tell you, when I walk out of here for the last time and I have a recollection of the many people that I have worked with over the years in my various programs, and including certainly first among which is the mental health program, I will feel that my primary professional accomplishment has been in the area of offering these opportunities and working with a dedicated group of people that have caused success in the private lives of the people that our programs have served.
Thank you for your time and interest in mental health courts. We can't wait to see what you create in your community.